Thursday! So, a couple of weeks ago, I challenged myself to make the croissanttosaurus, and some of you are interested in a pattern for him. Now, he is comprised of, it's like 17 or 18 pieces and is just not very user-friendly. So, I went back to the drawing board, and he's not sewn together, but we have gotten that down to, I think it's 8 pieces, and I'm going to be showing you how to make this chubby, wrinkly little baby dinosaur today. For today's pattern, you're going to need DK or 8-ply yarn in at least 2 colours, and I suggest that you pick a dark colour, and for me that's this purple, and a pale colour, and for me that's this pale blue, both of which were chosen by my chat during the most recent stream. I also suggest having a little bit of white available to you to add some details to the eyes afterwards. You're also going to need a 3.5mm hook, and that's a size E, a pair of 20mm safety eyes, lots of pins and a needle, some scissors, and some stuffing, which I have perched up here just so that you can see it on my white background. A written version of today's pattern, including all of the information I can possibly pack into it for this pattern, will be available on Etsy and will also be made available on Patreon. So I will leave a link to both in the description down below for anybody who is interested. And while I have tried to put tutorials for all the techniques into that pattern, you'll still probably have to come back here for some of the skills. It's just the way that's going to work. So we are going to start off today by making the head and body base piece, which starts at the tip of the nose and actually works all the way down to the underside. The good news is that while there is some surface crochet for this piece, it's only 1 row, so it's just a nice place to dip your toe and work out if this pattern is going to be for you. And we're going to work that completely in our pale colour. For me, that is this blue. So I'm going to grab my pale colour and we're going to start with a magic ring of 6. Like so. In row 2, we're going to work 2 repeats of 3 single crochet into the same stitch. A single crochet, and then 3 single crochet into the same stitch. So there's our first repeat, and we're going to do that again on the other side. So that should leave you with something that's kind of vaguely square, and you should have 14 stitches in your round. Row 3 is 2 repeats of a single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, 3 single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, and a single crochet. So there is our first repeat, emphasizing those corners, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Leaving you with an even more square looking piece that should have 22 stitches in your round. Then rows 4 and 5 are both 22 single crochet around for a combined total of 44 stitches. Like so. So there is the tip of our baby dinosaur's nose. In row 6, we're going to work 2 single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, 5 single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, and then 13 single crochet back to the start of our row. And that should leave you with 26 stitches in your round. Row 7 is very similar, getting us up to 30 stitches in our round. And row 8 is similar again, to get us up to 34 stitches. And there we are at the end of row 8. So that's all the shaping that we need to do for now. So what we're doing next is building up a little bit of depth to this head. So we're going to work 7 rows of 34 single crochet around for a combined total of 238 stitches. And I said that very confidently, but I assure you I am going to be checking that with a calculator. Oh good, I'm right. So there we are at the end of row 15. We still have 34 stitches in our round, and it should be looking like a very chubby pony. Row 16 starts with a decrease, then 5 single crochet, then we're going to single crochet 3 together, and I do these using the invisible decrease method. I'm just picking up the front loops of the 3 stitches we're decreasing over, yarning over, pulling up a loop through all 3, then yarning over and completing the stitch. So there is my single crochet 3 together. We're then going to work 8 single crochet, across to the other side, and then we're going to single crochet 3 together again. So 1, 2, 3, pull up a loop and complete the stitch. Then it's 5 single crochet, a decrease, and then 6 single crochet back to the start of our row. It might look a little wonky, that's fine, just keep in mind that this is a base piece, so most of it's going to get covered. Row 17 is then just 28 single crochet around. Like so. So there we are at the end of row 17, and row 18 is our first row and the only row in this particular piece to use surface crochet. So what is surface crochet? For the purposes of this pattern, surface crochet is the same as front post stitching, where you work your hook in between the gaps of the stitches instead of the loops at the top. So the whole point of surface crochet isn't just to make this needlessly difficult, it is to adjust the angle of the row that we're working on. If we kept working in our regular stitches, it would end up flat at the top like this and just working up this way, but we want it to be more like this so that we're curved and heading out in a different direction in order to get croissant-y legs. So I've put my notation for row 18 on the screen. Let it be known that I did try to find some kind of notation for how to write surface crochet, I just didn't succeed at it. So this is what I've come up with, and I'm going to explain what it all means. So row 18 starts pretty normally. We start with a decrease, and then 4 single crochet. And this brings us to our surface crochet. So for my surface crochet, we are going to be using single crochet, not slip stitches. So the surface crochet here does maintain the stitch count of our top row here. So when in doubt, you can just find the stitch we're up to along the top and follow the column of stitches down to work out where we need to work. So our first surface single crochet falls into row 17. This first series of holes, that's row 17. We know that because we made it last row and we're currently making row 18. So our first surface single crochet gets worked into row 17. Like that. So currently that's just a front post single crochet, but I wanted to keep the notation all standard. So we're calling that a surface single crochet into row 17. Our next one goes into row 16. So you find the next stitch along the top that we would otherwise be working into, which is this one here. And we're going to follow it down. So this is 17 and this is 16. Then we have 7 single crochet into row 15. So we're once again going to find the next stitch along at the top. And we're going to count. So 17, 16, 15. You'll see that my rows slope off at an angle. That's fine. We're following them down at an angle. And we're going to work 7 single crochet around using the gaps from row 15. And the other thing to remember here is when in doubt, close enough is good enough, okay? If you have two possible locations for a stitch and you can't work out which one is correct, just pick one. It'll be fine as long as it's roughly where it's supposed to go and you end up with the correct number of stitches in your round. Like that. So I'll take my hook out at this point. You can see our row is already starting to slope. And we've done, let's see, 9 surface crochet stitches so far. So if we go back to where our last stitch was through the loops at the top, it's this one here, we can count 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you can see that we are in line with where we should be. So our 10th stitch falls into row 16 again. Now we've just been working row 15, so we could just move one row up, or we could count from the start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Row 17, row 16. That's where our stitch goes. And then we have one last surface crochet into row 17. Like so. So that's not the end of our round, but that is the end of the surface crochet we are doing in it. We have all of these stitches we're not otherwise using, and we've reset our round on just a very slight angle. So that is how we're going to do surface crochet for the rest of this pattern. It's obviously a lot more involved when it comes time to do the legs, but we will step through them at about that same pace. So now we just need to finish row 18. So moving back into the stitches on top here, we will work 4 single crochet, a decrease, and then 5 single crochet back to the start of our row. And I want you to stop and check that you have 26 stitches in your round, and you can ignore these stitches here from now on. We're just talking about the round we just did. And I've dropped one. I have to go back. I missed this one here when we changed from surface crochet back to regular crochet, so you can see that that happens to everybody. I'm just going to redo the last part of that row. And we count again. And I now have the correct number of stitches, so we have worked our row correctly. And from here on out, we're going to start working up the back of the neck. So row 19 is a decrease, 2 single crochet, a decrease, a single crochet, 8 increases, and this is working to curve down into the chest. And the eagle-eyed among you may notice that I work my increases with the first stitch through the front loop only and then the second stitch through both loops. That is known as an invisible increase, and it's how I prefer to do them, but regular increases would also be fine for this pattern. So there are my 8 increases, and you can see there that that's in conjunction with our surface crochet, helping to like point our neck down in a very different direction to what it was at the end of last row. We're then going to work a single crochet, a decrease, 2 single crochet, a decrease, and then 4 single crochet back to the start of our row. And that should leave you with 30 stitches in your round. Now you can choose to stuff this at whatever point you're comfortable. This is very much a stuff as you go kind of project. In rows 20 and 21, we're going to continue decreasing across the top of the head and increasing along the bottom to help form that neck. Here we are at the end of row 21. So at this point, I am going to stop and stuff the base of my head. And I do recommend stuffing this piece quite firmly. I do like to tear my stuffing into smaller puffs before I chuck it in there though, just so that it stuffs a little bit more evenly. So there is our dinosaur head, and you'll note that the top, you'll note that front little bit is sitting off crookedly. Mine is too. Now that is just the way this particular pattern is. And there is our neck flap. So row 22 is the start of our post stitching for this pattern, and we're going to use that to give us some definition in the front of the neck rolls. In the original Crochontosaurus, I created these rolls using separate pieces, but for our little guy today, oh sorry, he is still not sewn together, please be kind, we just build these little rolls in because it dramatically simplifies the assembly process. So row 22 starts pretty normally with 2 decreases, then 3 single crochet, and then we're going to work 17 back post single crochet. So stitches are normally worked through the loops at the top, but when you're post stitching, you work your stitches around the post of the stitch. And when it's front post stitching, you're working from the front around the post back to the front. And when it's back post stitching, you're working from the back around the post back to the back. So back post stitching is what we're doing for the next part of this row. And we're going to work 17 back post single crochet around the front of the neck. (16) and 17. And what that should look like is you should have 2 sets of loops. So the loops we didn't use from the previous row and the loops we just created in this current row. These loops here are our official round, and these ones here are now officially just for decoration. Now whenever we're moving from regular stitching to post stitching, or from post stitching back to regular stitching, are the 2 most common places to gain or lose a stitch in our round. So what we're going to do is count backwards from our hook. What we're going to do is count backwards from our hook, and we're going to count 28 stitches, because that's how many stitches there should be in our round at this point in the row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5, 26, 27, 28. And that is how I can tell that, see this stitch that's kind of half squashed by the last post stitch I did? That is where I work my next stitch in my row, because if I went with my instinct, which is to go to these set of loops, I'd be skipping a stitch and losing it, and that would throw all of my future counts off. So that's why we count backwards from our hook when moving from post stitching back to single crochet. So to finish row 22, we're going to work 3 single crochet, and then a single crochet 3 together, which will leave us with just 26 stitches in our round. So row 23 is pretty basic, with a decrease, 22 single crochet, and then a decrease. Leaving us with 24 stitches in our round. So row 24 starts with 4 single crochet, and then we're going to work 16 front post single crochet, which can be a little bit easier because you can more easily kind of see where you're going. So we're going to work 16 front post single crochet, once again around the front of the neck. You'll see we're making those stitches on the outside of the work, like so. That's what mine currently looks like. And then we're going to count backwards from our hook to 24. And this is my next stitch, and we're going to work 4 single crochet to finish the row. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there we are at the end of row 24, and I am asking you to trust the process here quite a lot. I understand that, but I just want to make it really clear that this is what mine currently looks like. So rows 25 and 26 are going to once again focus on expanding out the front of the chest. Row 25 is 4 single crochet, and then 6 repeats of an increase and 2 single crochet. So there is our first one, and we're going to repeat that 5 more times around. And then 2 single crochet back to the start of the round. Row 26 starts with 4 single crochet, and then 3 repeats of 2 single crochet, an increase, and then a single crochet. So there's our first one. We're going to do that 2 more times. Like so, and then 3 repeats of a single crochet, an increase, and then 2 single crochet. So there's our first one. Like so, and then 2 single crochet to the start of the row. And we're then going to work 3 rows of 36 single crochet around for a combined total of 108 stitches. So there we are at the end of row 29. See there we've got first roll and sort of a little bit of pudge built up. Row 30 starts with 17 single crochet. Then an increase, 6 single crochet across the front, an increase, and then 11 single crochet back to our starting point. Like so. I'm just going to pop this out because it's not really doing anything for me right now. So in the next couple of rows, we're going to be locking in this second little roll. So row 31 starts with 8 single crochet, then 11 back post single crochet, count backwards from our hook until we hit 38 stitches, and then work 6 single crochet through both loops across the front, and that should fall between the increases from the previous row if you're using sort of landmark tracking. Then we're going to work 11 more back post single crochet, once again count backwards from our hook 38 stitches, and then work 2 single crochet to finish our round. So your round should still have 38 stitches in it, it's just now it has these 2 little ridges that we've formed. That's because this middle roll has kind of like an offset tab to the front of it that I did want to try and maintain between the 2 versions of the pattern. So row 32 is very similar to row 30, working 17 single crochet, an increase, 8 single crochet, an increase, and then 11 single crochet back to the start of your row, leaving you with 40 stitches in total. And then in row 33 we're going to lock in these ridges that we started previously. So we work 9 single crochet, then 11 front post single crochet, count backwards from your hook until you hit 40 stitches. Then we're going to work 6 back post single crochet, so you'll be able to see there the real difference between front post and back post. So we've got front post here and back post here, and our front post pushes the loops to the back And our back post pushes the loops to the front. You can, however, use stitch markers along these 6 if it helps you to be able to identify them later. And then we are going to work 11 front post single crochet. There we go. So now you're going to count backwards from your hook until you hit 40 stitches. So this is our 40th, and we're going to work 3 single crochet back to the start of our row. There we go. So get a good look at what that row has done. You'll see here we've used front post stitching to lock in our first part of the roll, back post stitching to create the middle part of the roll, and then front post stitching again to lock in the second part of the roll. And row 34 is an easier version of that. We're going to start by working 19 single crochet around, then an increase, 6 front post single crochet, we're then going to count backwards from our hook 41 stitches because that's how many there should be in our round at this point in the row, where we're going to work an increase, and then 13 single crochet back to our starting point. So that was 14, so let's just frog that last one. There we go. So you should have 42 stitches in your round. That's what the opening should look like at the moment. We've got a little bit of a ridge. And from the outside, untangle that, this is what we look like. Once again, you can choose to stuff at this point if you would like. I like to have mine a little bit further along than this. So the rest of this is pretty straightforward as we just build up like the final bulb of the body. So with row 35, it's 6 repeats of 3 single crochet, an increase, and then 3 single crochet. So there is our first repeat, and you're going to do that 5 more times around to bring our total stitch count up to 48. Then row 36 starts with 2 repeats of 4 single crochet, an increase, and then 3 single crochet, so that's 1, and we're going to do that again. Then it's 28 single crochet around the front, and then an increase, and 3 single crochet back to the start of our round. So that should leave us with 51 stitches in our round, and row 37 is almost the same thing again to get us up to 54 stitches. And then it's 2 rows of 54 single crochet around for a combined total of 108 stitches. We are then going to work 4 rows with 3 decreases in each row to bring our total count down to 42. There we are at the end of row 43. So our total count is down to 42 stitches, and you'll see that they've all been positioned kind of at the front to pull in the curve of the belly while the back is still kind of flaring outwards a little bit just because it's a butt. We like a little bit of a flared booty. My dinosaur still looks like a stargazer, and that's okay. I have not stuffed inside yet either. So from here, our closing off strategy gets a little bit more aggressive. Row 44 is 6 repeats of 5 single crochet and then a decrease to get us down to 36 stitches. Row 45 is 6 repeats of 2 single crochet, a decrease, and then 2 single crochet to get us down to 30 stitches. Row 46 is 6 repeats of 3 single crochet and a decrease to get us down to 24. And you might want to consider stuffing at this point because I know that's where I'm going to do it. Are you hungry, buddy? Feed me. Rawr. I'm going to take that as a yes. We all know that dinosaurs' favorite food is clouds. Alright, all stuffed, and we carry on. Row 47 is 6 repeats of a single crochet, a decrease, and then a single crochet to get us down to 18 stitches. Row 48 is 6 repeats of a single crochet and then a decrease to get us down to 12 stitches. And finally, row 49 is 6 decreases around and finish off. Congratulations, you have completed the first piece of our dinosaur. So we do still have this little opening in the butt, which is questionable. We do not leave openings in the butt. So I'm going to take this remaining tail and I'm going to pull it through the front loops only of the 6 stitches remaining in the round. And pull tight to close. Then we're just going to tuck it away down inside. Like so. There we go. So squidge your stuffing around until he's nice and even, and we're going to pop that to one side. Okay, so the second piece we're going to make today is this little face mask piece, and you'll see that some of it is double walled and some of it isn't. We've just got a single layer here. That's going to help us get a nicer join when we attach it to the body. And the technique warnings that come with this one here are that we are using an unusual stitch for the nostril, and we do have short rows for the back of the head. So I want you to grab your dark color, which for me is this lovely purple color, which I believe is called Wisteria from Four Seasons Marvel. But you are going to want to have either a darker color again, or a little bit of your pale color available to you to make those nostrils. And the first 5 rows of this are pretty straightforward. So we're going to start with a magic ring of 6. We're then going to work 2 repeats of 3 single crochet into the same stitch, a single crochet, and then 3 single crochet into the same stitch. So there's our first one, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And this is the exact same way as we started the base piece. So it should leave you with 14 stitches in your round and a vague little square shape. Row 3 is 2 repeats of a single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, 3 single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, and a single crochet. So there's our first one, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side to get our round up to 22 stitches. Like so. And then row 4 is 2 repeats of 2 single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, 5 single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, and 2 single crochet. So there is our first repeat, and we're going to do that again on the other side to get our row up to 30 stitches. And then row 5 is just 30 single crochet around. Like so. Okay, so row 6 of the face, I'm just popping in to say we're going to be building nostrils in over the next 3 rows, but if you don't want to do nostrils like I've done on this fellow here, you can just replace the next 3 rows with just 3 rows of 30 single crochet and it'll turn out just fine. So yeah, I'm going to go show you how to build nostrils now. So to build the nostrils, we are going to start by working 20 single crochet around to where we want the first nostril to be. So to build the nostrils, we need to start by working 20 single crochet around to where we want the first nostril to be, and we're going to change colors in the 20th stitch. 18 and 19. And in this 20th stitch, we're changing colors. Now this is the first color change for this whole pattern. We'll be doing a lot more of them for the limbs and the tail, but grab the color you want on the inside of your nostrils, which might be a black, it might be a darker shade of whatever color you're currently using. I'm personally going to be using my pale color for this today. And we work our color change by inserting our hook into the stitch, yarning over and pulling up a loop. So we have 2 loops of purple on our hook, and I'm going to hold that out of the way, grab the color I'm changing to, and I'm going to pinch that at the base of the stitch so that I can yarn over with it and pull it through both of the loops. Then I'm going to tug on my purple to tighten that down, give it a little scooch, and now I have a finished single crochet, which is the 20th in our purple, but my blue is on the hook ready to go. Now, if you're doing this properly, you could tie these 2 in a little knot at the back just to really secure them into place. But we're not going to trim off either end at this point because we're not done with our purple and we're about to use our blue. So yeah, a little double knot on the inside of your work will mean that they don't unravel as we go. I often don't bother with that step, but I'm trying to remember to show you guys best practice. Yeah, just in general, rule of thumb. So the next step is something that I refer to as a 4 double crochet cluster, and you'll note that in the pattern it's been labeled as a 4DC cluster inverted. That sounds like a really fancy stitch, but it's not. I would like to preface this by saying you can use whatever bobble or puff or cluster or popcorn stitch that you prefer, as long as you invert them, which just means you have them bobble on the inside instead of the outside. So for the 4 double crochet cluster today, we're going to yarn over our hook, insert into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you've got 3 blue loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops of your hook. So we're kind of halfway through a double crochet there. And then we're going to repeat those steps 3 more times into the same stitch. So yarn over, insert into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on our hook. So as you can see, each one is adding a new loop to my hook. So that's 2. I'm going to do it again for 3, and one last time for 4. So you can see at the moment I have 5 blue loops on my hook, my active loop, and then 4 from each of these little kind of half formed double crochets. Now, normally I would just yarn over and pull through all 5 loops to finish this stitch, but I want to change back to my purple. So instead, we're going to change back to our purple at this stage. So I'm going to hold my light blue out of the way, grab my purple from where it's still attached and just sort of pull it up. You can still pinch it at the base of the stitch if it gives you some stability. Yarn over with it and pull through all 5 of those blue loops and pull on the light blue strand to tug that down. Give it a little shuffle, shuffle. And there is our finished 4DC cluster, and we want to invert it. So I'm just going to poke it so it's bubbling inside. And you may need to move your color change strand out of the way a little bit. You might need to like fidget it around a bit. But in general, we're going to have it inverted onto the inside of our work. So there is the start of our first nostril. We are then going to work 4 single crochet across what's going to be the top of the nose, but we're going to change back to our blue in the 4th stitch. So here we go, 1, and you can see that that's really helped to fold that stitch over. 2, 3, and I want to change back to my pale blue. I'm just grabbing it from over there and pulling it across. Pinch at the base of the stitch and work our little color change. I just want to acknowledge the fact you could probably do this without the color changes. I just think that they pop a little nicer with a color change. And we're going to do another 4 double crochet cluster inverted. So yeah, form our 4 little stumps all into the same stitch. Like that. So you've got 5 loops on your hook. And change back to our purple to finish off the stitch. We are then just going to work 4 single crochet to finish the row. There we go. So I'm just going to poke this one a little bit to make sure it's bobbling the way that I want it to. So you'll see these 2 loops. That's the stitch we'll work into as part of the round, and these 2 loops here. So you should be able to see those in the flow of the round, but most of the stitch should be sitting behind, and it's giving you these 2 nicely tucked away little nostrils. You can trim off your blue at this point. I'm superstitious, so I like to leave it attached for a round. It's just in case of frogging or in case of change of mind, really. So in row 7, we're going to work 20 single crochet. 1, 2, it should bring you back to your 1 blue stitch, or whatever color you've chosen, and into that 1 blue stitch I'm going to work 3 single crochet all into the same pair of loops. Like that. We're then going to work 4 single crochet across the top, and then 3 single crochet into the top of the next nostril. Then 4 single crochet back to our starting point. You should have 34 stitches in your round so far. Now in row 8 we're going to lock in those nostrils. So this is the final row that deals with nostrils, and then I'll stop saying the word nostrils. So we're going to work 20 single crochet around. We're then going to work a single crochet 3 together. And then 4 single crochet across the top of the nose. I will take any and all recommendations on how to quiet the hook down. I don't know how to make it stop squeaking. Bringing us across to our second nostril, where we will once again work a single crochet 3 together. And then 4 single crochet back to the start of our round. And that has satisfied my superstition, so I'm going to trim off my blue. So there are our 2 little nostrils, and if you wanted to get a feel for how far we are into this face, find your magic ring and use that as like the center, or like the folding line, and you can fold this, and you should get like the end of his bill, his little beak. So as you see, we have quite a long way to go, but we're getting there, we're making some progress. Row 9 starts with 2 single crochet, an increase, 13 single crochet, an increase, 5 single crochet, and then 2 repeats of 3 single crochet into the same stitch and 3 single crochet. So there is our first one, and we're going to do another one. So those 2 stitches do represent the start of our eyebrow ridges, and you'll note that they do look wonky. They don't look like they're in line with the nostrils correctly. So I'm going to ask you to trust the process here a little bit and know that as we like pinch and pull things into position, they do end up being in the right place where they currently are. Okay, row 10 starts with 2 single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, 15 single crochet around the underside of the jaw, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, a single crochet, and then 2 repeats of 5 single crochet, and then 3 single crochet into the same stitch. That's our first one, and we're going to do that again. Then it's just 4 single crochet back to the start of our round. Which should leave you with 44 stitches around. Row 11 starts with 3 single crochet, then 3 single crochet all into the same stitch, 9 single crochet, then 2 repeats of 8 single crochet, and then 3 single crochet into the same stitch. So that's 1, and we're going to do that again. Then 2 single crochet, and then 2 repeats of an increase, and a single crochet. That's 1, and we're going to do it again. We're then going to work a single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, then 5 single crochet back to the starting point, leaving us with 54 stitches in our round. Row 12 is blessedly simple in comparison, where we're going to start with 4 single crochet, and then 2 repeats of 3 single crochet into the same stitch, and then 19 single crochet. So there's 1, and we're going to do that again. Which will leave us approximately there. And then it's 10 single crochet back to the start of our round. There we are at the end of row 12. You should have 58 stitches in your round. And we're now going to work 4 rows of 58 single crochet for a combined total of 232 stitches. Okay, so this is roughly what your piece should look like at this point, and it looks like it should just go over the top, but it doesn't. We are going to, once again, using our magic ring as our folding in half indicator, we're going to fold this in half. Like so. And then you're going to push down in between those 2 little eyebrow ridges, and so that's actually what your face looks like at this point. You'll see that we are really just at the very back of the head now, and that's actually it for the double layered. From this point onwards, we are going to work just in a single layer backwards and forwards. So this is where our short rows begin. We're going to start by working 8 single crochet down to the side of our face. Then we're going to chain 1 and turn. so that we're looking back at the stitches we just did. So looking at our stitches, you'll note that there is 2 loops that form each stitch. You've got one on the side facing away from you and one on the side facing towards you. So the one facing towards you is your front loop, and we're going to work the next row just in the front loops. We are going to work 37 slip stitches in the front loops only. So that's 37. We're going to chain 1 and turn so that the nice side of our work is facing us once again. And you'll see our previous row has left all of these little front loops free as well. So we're going to work back across, but we're going to be careful to insert our hook under the front loop left free by those slip stitches so that we're working over the top of the slip stitch as well. So row 19 starts with 11 single crochet, and you can see me there inserting my hook under the front loop and working our single crochet over the top of the slip stitch. It's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So that's how that looks. You'll note that the single crochet is slightly taller than previously, but trust me when I tell you that this is the lesser of 2 evils. We are then going to work a single crochet 3 together, and you can do that using the invisible method, but if you do that, make sure you're using the front loops. And then 9 single crochet across the top of the head. Then a single crochet 3 together. And then 11 single crochet back to the start of our row. Chain 1 and turn. So that's how we're going to work our short rows. So you're going to use that technique over the next 10 rows to finish sort of doming off the back of this neck. So there we are at the end of row 29, and we're going to finish off. So I found that once you kind of fold it into position, it kind of wants to go back to that position, but just in case you haven't done it yet, I'm going to try and pop mine back out. That is what it looks like. We're going to fold it in half, that magic ring in the middle, so that that flap we're making at the back sticks out. And when we insert the eyes, we'll just be working through one of the layers here of the head. But in the meantime, karate chop to form 2 little eyebrow ridges that we can finesse as we sew on. Pop that to one side. So the next piece we're going to make is the tail. And what's fun about the tail is that it's one of the only pieces that actually is exactly the same from the original Crochontosaurus. I think the arms are the only other piece, but that's neither here nor there. So I want you to have both of your colors here ready to go, just because the technique warning for this particular piece is color changes. There are a few back and forth. It's not too bad. So in our dark color, I want you to start with a magic ring of 6. And so next we're going to work 3 rows of 6 single crochet for a combined total of 18 stitches. But in the 18th stitch, we're going to change to our blue. So that's 17, and the next stitch is our 18th stitch. So we're going to work a color change just the same way we did earlier with the nostrils. So working in our blue, we're going to work 6 front post single crochet around, You've had a little bit of practice doing that so far. It's a lot more fun to do it when you're working in alternate colours though. There's that. Note that I haven't trimmed the purple off. We are going to continue carrying that through the rows. And next, in the back loops, so that's the loop on the side of the stitch facing away from you, we're going to work 6 increases around, and in that final increase we're going to change back to our purple. So there's our first increase. We need to do 5 more of those around. So there's our second one, third, fourth, and fifth. So to do the color change, you work the first single crochet of the increase, no difference, and then we do our color change in the second single crochet of the increase. Like so. So it looks like a tiny little hat. So now with our purple on our hook ready to go, we're going to work 12 back post single crochet around. So that's the opposite of the front post stitching you were doing before. That's 1, 2, and as mentioned, this is significantly more fun to do when you're working in 2 different colours. There we go. So that's what we look like at the end of row 7. It's working up fast, right? Then row 8 is 3 repeats of 3 single crochet and an increase. So that's our first one. We're going to do that 2 more times around. That should leave you with 15 stitches in your round. I'm just going to take these 2 loose little tails and just tuck them all the way in because I feel like they are distracting from what we are doing. Frankly, they're annoying me, so they can just go away. Then row 9, we're going to do 3 repeats of 3 single crochet and a decrease. So there's our first one, and we're going to do that 2 more times around to get back down to 12 stitches. Then in row 10 we're going to work 12 single crochet around, changing colours in our 12th stitch. And there is our second little blob. Now the tail consists of 5 blobs and we make them all the same way that we've just done, just they get increasingly large. So that is the end of the blue for this piece, but again, superstition kicks in and I'm not trimming it off just yet. Instead, we're going to work our purple rows. So we're going to work 24 back post single crochet around. Like so. And I'm now comfortable trimming off my blue. If only to get it out dewy. And we have just 4 rows left. So row 26 is 6 single crochet. Then 6 repeats of an increase. And a single crochet. So that's our first one. We're going to do that 5 more times around. and 6 single crochet back to the start of our round. So you should have 30 stitches in your round at this point, and that's good. That's as wide as this tail gets. In row 27, we're going to start with 6 slip stitches, and be sure to work them loosely enough that you'll be able to work into them next round. Four, 5, 6. We're then going to work 6 single crochet. And then we're going to work 6 half double crochet. So the way we work those is you yarn over your hook, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, so you've got 3 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that is how you do a half double crochet. You'll note that the half double crochet is just slightly bigger than a regular single crochet, and that combined with the slip stitches at the start of the row is just going to help give a very slight tilt to the base of this tail. That's our first half double. We're going to do 5 more of those. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then 6 single crochet. And 6 slip stitches back to the start. Again, just being careful not to pull those slip stitches too tightly. So there we are at the end of row 27. Row 28 is 30 single crochet around. And then row 29 is just a repeat of row 27 with 6 slip stitches, then 6 single crochet, 6 half double crochet, 6 single crochet, and 6 slip stitches back to the start of our row. And finish off. So this strange unicorn horn ice cream cone is our tail. And we are going to stuff it. Now when you stuff it, I suggest you focus on segments. You don't need to stuff the very tip. Stuff some stuffing into here, then here, and here, and then you can put a little bit in here for now, but as we attach it, you might need to stuff it some more, you know? So we'll stuff the first little segment. It's deeper than it looks. Here we go. And then the next little segment. And I'm going to leave my 5th empty for now. And it should be noted that it will have the same little tilt, the curl of mine, if you just simply pull all of your purple segments towards one side. And there is our tail. I'm going to take these pins out for now though, just because that makes it a hazard. And it's perfectly fine to do that step after it's actually sewn onto the body. So there is our finished tail. Okay, so now that we've done the tail, the body, and the face, the next thing to do is the limbs. I feel like we're going to do these in a little bit of an unconventional order, but I'm going to ask you to bear with me. Because basically, we have 2 arms and 2 legs to make, right? Still not sewn together. But the hands and the feet are actually the exact same pattern, and we join these toes in the round. So the first thing we have to do is just make a bunch of loose toes, specifically 8 of them, even though there's 12 present on the final dinosaur. It'll all make sense as we go, trust me. I can tell you just want to watch the action, so let's just set you up over there, okay? Now you can keep an eye on things. So these toes are going to be the simplest thing we make all day. And all you're going to do is take your darkest color, for me, purple still. Though if you wanted to do different color toes, you could totally use a different color for this. And we're going to do a magic ring of 4. And I apologize for how small that is, because I do understand it makes it quite fiddly. But honestly, least of your worries with these legs. So 3 and 4. And then we are going to do 2 rounds of 4 single crochet for a combined total of 8 stitches. that's one row, and this is two rows. There we go. Tiny little nub, and finish off. Now I'm going to suggest that you get this prepared for attaching in the round just by trimming off your sort of starting tail a little bit shorter and tucking that down inside. All nice and neat. So there is our first little toe, and I want you to pop that to one side, and I need you to make 7 more so that we have 8 in total. Okay, so here we have all of our little toes prepared all in their little rows. So we'll use 2 of these for each hand, 2 for the left leg and 2 for the right leg. Keep them up here as a little tally. That may or may not always be in frame, but it is what it is. We are now going to move into making like the hands and the feet. So both the arms and the legs start with the same 6 rows, and it involves attaching the toes. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through it once, and you can replay the video if you need to see it again. Here's my thought. So we are going to start with a bunch of purple, or your dark color if you're playing along at home. Okay, so we're going to start again with a magic ring of 4. We're basically going to make another toe. Really towed the line there. I'm getting towed away. You must be sick of them by now, I'm so sorry, but it's okay. This gets interesting fast. So there we go. And then we're going to work our 2 rows of 4 single crochet. Like so. So this is basically a toe just when we haven't finished yet. And I'm not going to finish it off, but I'm just going to tuck this little end away. So this is what is going to be referred to as our base toe. We are then going to attach 2 more toes in the next round, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is work 2 single crochet into our base. So 1 and 2. So that means of the 4 stitches, we've worked into 2 of them and we haven't worked into 2 of them. That will come back later. You can feel free to mark the other 2 if that's going to help you. I'm going to grab one of my other toes, and if you look at them, you'll note that we have 4 stitches around the top of it as well. Now it doesn't matter what rotation this toe is attached on because it's the same the whole way around. But all I'm going to do is pick any of these 4 stitches. I'm going to start here for the sake of argument, and I'm going to work 2 single crochet into what I'm going to call toe number 2. Like so. So now we have 2 toes joined on, each where we've worked into 2 out of their 4 stitches. And we're going to grab toe number 3, and again there's 4 stitches around the top, and it doesn't matter which stitch we want to use to attach them first because we're going to use all of them anyway. But again, for the sake of argument, I'm going to use the stitch just after the finishing off point. And this time I'm going to work a single crochet into each of the 4 stitches around this 3rd toe. It's 2, 3, and 4. So that should have swung your work around. So these are the stitches we've just done on the back here. And now we're facing the side where we haven't worked the stitches on these other 2 toes. We've worked into every stitch of toe 3, so now we're going to move back to toe number 2, and we're going to work a single crochet into each of the stitches that we have not stitched into yet. So that's 2 there, bringing us back to our base toe, and we're going to work a single crochet into each of the stitches we haven't stitched into yet. So that's potentially where stitch markers come in. If you have a hard time identifying stitches, no shade here, anything that makes life easier is worth doing. So there we have all 3 toes attached in a row, and a new round that is 12 stitches around. And that is going to form the base of both our hands and our feet. So we're going to go back to the other camera now, okay? Bye-bye. Hello, did you miss me? So that's where we're at the end of row 4. Row 5 is then 2 repeats of a decrease and then 4 single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's our first one, and we're going to do that again. Decrease, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we are down to just 10 stitches, and I'm going to take any remaining tails from where we attach those toes and poke them down and away so that we never have to think about them ever again. Then row 6 is simply 10 single crochet around, and we're going to change to our pale colour in the 10th stitch. That's 9 stitches, and this is our 10th one. And I'm going to change to my blue. So that is the foundation for both the hands and the feet, including the changing colours in the final stitch. So I'm going to be making each of the hands and feet as we need them, but you could absolutely like pre-prepare them and just not finish them off. So we are going to be moving into our arms. So starting with row 7, because we've already done rows 1 through 6, we're going to work 10 front post single crochet around in our blue, changing back to our purple or our dark colour in the 10th stitch. That's 9, and we're going to change back to our purple in this 10th one. We're just all about those color changes today. Working in our purple and working in the back loops only, we're going to work 10 single crochet around. That's 9 and 10. So then going back to working in both loops, we're going to work 2 repeats of an increase and then 4 single crochet. There's our first one. We're going to do the same thing on the other side to get us up to 12 stitches in our round. Next, we're going to work 2 rows of 12 single crochet around for a combined total of 24 stitches, changing back to our blue in the final stitch of the second row, which will be your 24th stitch. That's 23, and we're going to do our color change in the 24th stitch. Then row 12 is 12 front post single crochet around in our blue, changing back to our purple in the 12th stitch. I suppose the warning on this particular piece should have been color changes. They're not that many though. I think we all remember the rainbow dart frog. Now, and I should mention that if you do not want to have stripes throughout your work, in your rolls, just don't change colours and work the stitches otherwise exactly as written. So in that case you'd be doing these front post stitches just in your purple. Just carry on. I just think that the colours bring a little bit of fun to it, and I think it could be a super fun gradient piece as well. And so here's our 12th stitch, and we're going to change back to our purple. That's all she wrote for the blue in this row, but again, superstition, we're going to leave it attached for another couple of rows. In our purple, working in the back loops, we're going to do 12 single crochet around. Then going back to working through both loops, we're going to work 2 repeats of a single crochet, an increase, and then 4 single crochet. So there's our first one, and we're going to do that again to get our round up to 14 stitches. And from here we're going to be narrowing off. Not completely, we're not going to close it off completely, but we are going to narrow it off a little bit. So if you would like to, you can put a little bit of stuffing in just this segment of the arm. As you see, there wasn't a lot, and we'll put a little bit more in this segment as well. The kind of the theme for this pattern is we're going to be stuffing the purple segments, but not so much anywhere there's blue, except for, of course, you. Okay, so row 16 is 2 repeats of 2 single crochet, a decrease, and then 3 single crochet, which will get your round down to 12. Then row 17 is 2 repeats of a single crochet, a decrease, and then 3 single crochet to get your round down to 10. And then finally, row 18 is just 10 single crochet around. And finish off. Oh, and I got to finish off that blue as well. Add a little bit of stuffing into that second purple segment, as I mentioned. So this is what your arm should look like. And I'm going to take 2 more of my toes and I'm going to whip up another one now. Now you may notice that I'm doing more hyperlapses for this video. I'm just very aware that it's a very long video, so I'm trying to give you some nice little musical interludes, some nice little mental breaks to just help you kind of decompress before we head into the next piece, because my goodness are these legs difficult. So enjoy this little peaceful break while you've got it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. So there are our 2 arms. Add those to your little motif. So next up we are making the legs, and as I mentioned before, these are definitely the hardest piece for this whole project, just because of all of the surface crochet we're doing. In fact, some people might call the surface crochet we're doing excessive, but they'd be wrong, because we're doing it to preserve the croissantiness of the curve of the original. And something that was really important to me. I feel like it's the spirit of this pattern to have these very roly-poly curvy little legs, and that just sadly requires a lot of surface crochet. So I want you to start by working up, we were calling them hands before, now we're going to call them feet. Okay, so there we are at the end of row 6, having made our first little foot. Note that we haven't done any front post stitching or anything with that yet. That's because we have arrived at the first round of surface crochet. There's going to be a lot of them. Get comfy. So we're going to do row 7. So you see there, row 7 says surface single crochet, and then a bunch of numbers that are going to make sense in time. We're going to start by working 5 surface single crochet into row 5. So what we're going to do is we have 10 stitches in our round, and the first 5 of them are going into row 5. What we have here is, this is row 6 at the top, so this is row 5, 1 row down. So we find our first stitch, which is here, and those holes are row 6, and we move down a level to row 5, and this is where we put our first single crochet. So that's our first one. And you can do that for each stitch, just find the stitch at the top and follow it down, or you can just sort of keep working around the row now that we've found it. But in any case, put 5 stitches around row 5. 3, 4, and 5. So that's what that currently looks like. Then the second half of row 7 is 5 surface single crochet into row 6. So what you can do is you can count until you hit the 6th stitch around the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this one here is 6. Follow it down to its little stump. So we know where to go because we're currently making row 7, which means that the last stitches we did were row 6. So this is basically just 5 front post single crochet. if that's an easier way for you to think about it. Five, and this is the 5th stitch, and we are changing back to our purple. How are we feeling about that? Okay, that's what it looks like from the inside. We've got the underside, we have the top, we have the little flap. Basically we have 5 stitches that are 1 extra row down and 5 stitches that are right kind of at the top of the row. It's adjusted the angle of our row from this way to this way. Yeah. So there we are at the end of row 7. We should still have 10 stitches in our round. And we're going to be working in the blue stitches and ignoring the purple stitches now. So for row 8, we're going to work in the back loops only, and we're going to do 10 single crochet around. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then row 9 is back to working through both loops. We're going to do 5 increases. And then 5 single crochet back to the start of our round, which will now be 15 stitches around. The next 2 rows are both 15 single crochet around for a combined total of 30 stitches, and we're going to change back to our blue in the 30th stitch, which is the final stitch of row 11. So this is 29. And this is 30, changing to our blue. So that's us at the end of row 11, and row 12 is another row of surface crochet, so just adapt, adjust. I'm bringing in the alternate camera again. Alrighty, so row 12, we're going to start by chaining 2, and the reason we do that is because the surface crochet we want to start with is 2 rows down, so we want to be able to reach it without like crumpling our work. So those 2 chains gives us a little bit of room to move. So we're working on row 12, and our first stitch goes into row 9. So find our first stitch here, and we go row 11, row 10, row 9. That's where our first one is. Our second stitch goes into row 10, and you could just go like 1 across and then 1 up, but we're going to do this properly. So that's stitch 1, which we've already done. Stitch number 2 is in row 10, so that's 11, 10. So this one here goes there. And I would just like to reiterate that close enough really is good enough. As long as you're getting them approximately where they should go and you end up with the right number of stitches around, you'll be fine. Okay, so then stitch 3 goes into row 11. So 1, 2, 3, it's this one up here. And row 11 is just that first row of gaps. And it looks like we're going to do 5 across. So that's our first one. Then we're going to do 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we have our 8th stitch going into row 10. So you can count from the start again if you want, or you can just kind of navigate to the next one around, but we'll do it the long way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is stitch 8 here, and it's going into row 10. So this is 11, and this is 10. And then the next stitch around is going into row 9. So this is the next stitch, 11, 10, 9. And it looks like we're doing 7 stitches along row 9. So that's our first one. We have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, And then in our 7th, we're changing back to our purple. So that's the 7th stitch. It's my 2 loops on my hook. And then my purple is tucked away down inside, and I'm just going to pull it up and over. It's fine, because all of this will be tucked away inside anyway, so we've just pulled it up and around. I understand that a lot of crafters have that perfectionist gene, and I adore that about us as a community, really, but if that bothers you, just trim off your purple on the inside and reattach it on the outside. No big deal. And there we are at the end of row 12. And those blue stitches are the stitches we're going to use for row 13. We can ignore all of the purple stitches at the top there from now on. Your eyes, sir, are being a problem. We've got a really good slope on that row. So then for row 13, we're going to be working 15 single crochet in the back loops only, and I want you to be careful not to start in our starting chain. So if you have to, count backwards from your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that identifies this as my first stitch, and that is my first back loop. So there's always a way to work out where you should be. And I do try to give you guys the tools to work some of this stuff out, rather than just point out individual stitches and tell you just to stitch in them with no explanation. I think it's more helpful for both of us if I give you guys some tools, you know. There we go. It's super fun to work on the slope like this. Alright, I'm paranoid. The camera's working, we're fine. Sometimes the anxiety gets too much and we gotta check. There we go. So that is what we look like after row 13. You'll see we've got this little lump of fabric that's just going to stay inside forever now, trapped within the confines of the roly little leg. So rows 14, 15 and 16 are fairly straightforward. Row 14 being 3 repeats of an increase and then 2 single crochet, and then 6 single crochet to get us back to the start of the row. And row 15 and 16 being 18 single crochet around each for a combined total of 36 stitches, changing back to our blue in the final stitch. So there we are at the end of row 16, including having changed back to our blue/pale colour. Which brings us to row 17, which is another row of surface single crochet. We're totally making progress. So for row 17, the first stitch goes into row 16. So first stitch, this is 16. There we go. That's a nice easy starting point. And it looks like the first 6 stitches all go into row 16. So that does give us a nice easy starting point, that's for sure. It's a trap, guys. 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So the 7th stitch is this one here, this little blob, and the next one goes into row 15. So this is 16 here. We go down a level to 15. Right there. And it looks like we're doing 4 around. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's the first 10 stitches of this row. There's 8 to go. I do like to count from the beginning to reset myself. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And stitch 11 is the next one we want to work with. And it looks like stitch 11 goes into row 14. So we've got 16, 15, 14. We're going to do 4 around row 14. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we have just 4 stitches left to go. This one's our first one here. And it looks like they all go into row 15. So this is 16, this is 15. 1, 2, 3, and in that final one we are changing back to our purple once again. Sometimes you have to move yarn out of the way on the inside. Where I've changed colors there, it's kind of blocking my hook, so I'm just going to hold it off to one side a little bit. get my hook through there and change back to my purple. Now the right leg is harder because it tends to start at the low point of the slope, whereas the left leg tends to always start at like the high point of the slope, but that is what we look like at the end of row 17. Give you guys a really good look. Got another row of stitches lost to the sands of time. And yeah, there are other ways to accomplish curves like this, but this is just how we're doing it for this particular fella. So once again, ignoring our purple stitches and working only into the blue ones, we're actually going to work 18 back post single crochet around. So that is a post stitch around each of these little blue ones, working from the inside of the leg back to the inside of the leg. That's the end of row 18. I'm loving these two colors together. And again, the next 3 rows are pretty straightforward. Row 19 is 3 repeats of an increase and then a single crochet, then 12 single crochet to get back to the start of the round. And then rows 20 and 21 are both 21 single crochet around for a combined total of 42 stitches, changing back to our blue in the 42nd stitch, which is the final stitch of row 21. 41. 42. So there we are at the end of row 21. And we are about to do another surface crochet row, and I believe this one here might be one of the most extreme ones. Okay, so it looks like the first 7 stitches go into row 21, so that's nice and easy. Find our first stitch around, find the little first lot of gaps, and we're going to work 7 stitches this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No big deal there. Then it looks like, okay, then the 8th stitch goes into row 20. This is the 8th stitch, this little blob here. This is row 21, and we want to work into row 20, so we go down 1 layer of gaps, and it looks like the next 4 stitches all go into row 20. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. It looks like the next 2 stitches go into row 19. So we have our stitch here. We go row 21, row 20, row 19. We're going to do 2 across. Then we have 1 into row 18. So find your stitch. It's a lot easier when you're not trying to show someone else. You find your stitch, which is here. So 21, 20, 19, 18. Then we're going to work 3 single crochet through the loops from row 17. So those are these blue loops, and I'm just going to line up with the closest 3 that keep your little curve moving forward. So 1, 2, 3. So that's 17 stitches in our row so far, starting all the way over here and curving down and around. And so now we need to just like travel back up the side. So our 18th stitch goes into row 19, and you can count from the start backwards, or you can start from the end and move back this way. So we know we have 4 stitches left in our row. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's the stitch we're working into. So we go row 21, row 20, row 19. So that's here. I need my yarn on the other side of my hook though. So there we go. Just rearrange. It's 19. Then we have 2 into row 20, so it's this stitch, 21, 20. 1 and 2. And then our final stitch is going into row 21, which is up here, and we are changing back to our purple in it. So purple has an even further, like has longer and longer distances to travel each time, but I am still just like pulling mine up from wherever it is. So there we are at the end of row 22, having survived the first mega tilted row. Look at that. You did that. That just folds away inside. So get a nice join there. And we're going to take our purple and work 21 back post single crochet around. Just like that. And this time we have 5 rows to work in our purple before we change back to our blue. So row 24 is 5 repeats of a single crochet and then an increase, and then 11 single crochet to get back to our starting point. So that's the end of the repeats. Leaving us with 26 stitches in our round. Then row 25 is 4 repeats of 2 single crochet and then an increase, then 14 single crochet back to the start of our round to leave you with 30 stitches in your row. Row 26 is 3 repeats of an increase and then 9 single crochet to bring our round up to 33 stitches. Then rows 27 and 28 are 33 single crochet around each for a combined total of 66 stitches, changing back to our pale colour in the final stitch of row 28, which is our 66th stitch. 65, and this blue is going on a long journey from all the way down there to up here, but it's fine. There we go. So that's us at the end of row 28. Okay, final row of surface crochet for the piece. If you have an emotional support tortoise, I suggest you grab it now. Alrighty, final row of surface crochet for this leg. Hardest row, of course, but it's like the exam, you know? We've done all of the homework, we've done all of the prep work. Now we just have to do the final exam. So we're going to start really easily, honestly. So the first 15 stitches go into row 28. So if we look at our first stitch here, row 28 is the first set of openings. So we're just going to work 15 surface single crochet around row 28, which is basically the same as doing front post stitches. How many have I done so far? Are you guys keeping count? I didn't keep count. Right, hold on a sec. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How many am I doing? 15, all right. 13, 14, and 15. So this stitch here is where we're going next, and it looks like the next stitch goes into row 27. So this is row 28. We go down a row to row 27. Next stitch along, looks like we're doing 2 into row 26. So that's row 28, 27, 26. And that's 1 and 2. So this is our next stitch along. It looks like we're doing row 25. So 28, 27, 26, 25. Next stitch along is going into row 24. So 28, 27, 26, 25, 24. Current check. what we look like. See, we're just sloping on down. Then it looks like we're going to do row 23 next. So all the way down here. We're going to single crochet through the loops from row 22. Then single crochet through the loops from row 17. And so you just kind of have to make an intuitive jump here, where there's no real clear way to track it necessarily. We just like, if we've used this stitch, it's roughly here. So we're going to start our single crochets here. So we'll go 1, and 2. Then the next 3 stitches around, so 1, 2, and 3, are going to be worked around row 16, and the easiest way to identify those is row 16 is where we worked these blue stitches before, so that's why I'm saying it's 1, 2, and 3. Though again, with this part of the row, close enough is absolutely good enough. So I'm just going to work around those same stitches. Two and 3. So then we're going to go back up to where our loops from row 22 are, which is this previous row here. Just find the one that's sort of closest to the next stitch over. Work a single crochet through those. See, that one's a little bit of a stretch, but we are really trying to like pull our leg around, so it's allowed to be a little bit of a stretch. And now we have 5 stitches to go. So I want you to find the last 5 purple stitches remaining in your row up here. And this one here is the next one we're going to work into. Our stitch is going to go into row 24. So this is 28, 27, 26, 25, 24. That's where our stitch is going to go, okay? Which is going to look a little bit funny. Even I've subscribed to close enough is good enough there. See? We've swung around and then I've clearly had to just make a vertical move, and that's fine. We've recalibrated using those 5 stitches at the top, so we know our row is going to line up okay. Our next one around goes into row 25. So find our 4th stitch from the end, 20, and count 28, 27, 26, 25. It's this one here. 3rd stitch from the end is going into row 26, so 28, 27, 26. Our 2nd stitch from the end, we're going into row 27, so 28, 27. And the final stitch of our row is going into 28. There we go. Told you the row was hard. And I'm sorry, in that stitch we were supposed to change back to our purple or your dark color. So just grab that and work your color change, and that's actually it for the blue. Let's give you a good look at what that actually looks like. See how extreme of a row we have working here? I could have potentially avoided the really sharp right turn here if I frogged back to here and kind of and picked like a loop of these two from these 2 rows that was slightly further back, but I'm doing this kind of intentionally just to show you, to prove to you that close enough is good enough. So if you're getting a right angle in your work and it's bothering you, just come back to where we started working through the loops from row 22 or row 17 and just move your stuff along one stitch and you'll find it lines up in a smoother curve. But that's what that looks like. And that means that when it sits against the body, this whole flap will be on the inside. You still need to build a little bit more thigh out, but it'll sit against the body like that. So our final row for this little leg is in our purple, and we're going to work 33 back post single crochet around. So there is our finished left leg. I'm just going to finish off. Finish off with the blue as well. I'm going to put a little bit of stuffing in just a little pudgy part of the leg here. There's like a lot of layers of crochet that we didn't end up using. Well, I mean, it is being used, but it's just not going to be visible on the final piece. But get some stuffing on down in there. We'll stuff this bit when we go to attach it. But how this is going to work, excuse me, is that this will sit against the body, putting our leg on a nice, fun little angle. So pop that to one side, and I want you to work up another little foot up to row 6, just like we did with this one here. So there is our little foot using up the last 2 of our toes. We're on the final leg of this particular journey. And yes, I am pleased with that pun. So the right leg is actually the same as the left leg up to, I think, the end of row 11. So I'm probably not going to pull in the other camera just yet, even though we do have a row of surface crochet to do now. So we're going to do row 7, which requires 5 stitches into row 5. So this is our stitch, that's row 6, this is row 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then 5 stitches into row 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then in this final stitch I'm going to change back to my purple. It's row 7, exactly the same way as I showed it for the left foot. Then in our purple we're going to work in the back loops only and put 10 single crochet around. Like so. So for the right leg I'm going to focus more on just the surface crochet rows because I think they're kind of the tricky bit. So go ahead and work row 9, 10, and 11, changing back to our pale color in the final stitch of row 11. And there we are at the end of row 11, ready to get started on our proper surface crochet, because the whole point of this being 2 separate legs is that while this one here had to curve this way, this one here has to curve that way. And that's actually what makes it so much harder, because where we could start a lot of these curves in line with the rows we were already doing, with this one here we're having to jump down to get started, which can be a little trickier to find where we want to put the stitches. We are up to row 12 and we are going to start by chaining 2, like so, because we need to access some lower rows here. And our first surface single crochet is going to go into row 9. So we'll find our stitch. That's row 11, row 10, row 9 is all the way down here. There we go. And it looks like we're doing 3 into row 9. So 1, 2, 3. So this is our 4th stitch here. Is this little block. It looks like the next one goes into row 10, so that's row 11, row 10, and then 5 into row 11, which is nice and easy. They're just these ones here, that very first row of stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we have another one in row 10, and that's this little one, so that's row 11, row 10, and 5 more into row 9. So there's our stitch, row 11, row 10, row 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Changing back to our purple in that 5th stitch. Once again, just pulling it up from the inside and over the little garden wall. No worries whatsoever. So that is what row 12 of the right leg looks like. Now we're in starting row 13. Don't forget that we are not working into the chains, and we'll be starting in the first surface crochet. So not the chains, just the surface crochet. Okay, so in our purple, in the back loops only, we're going to work 15 single crochet around. Like so. And we're then going to work rows 14, 15 and 16, changing back to our pale colour in the final stitch of row 16. And final stitch. So there we are at the end of row 16, and I've got my pale colour, my blue, back on my hook, and we are getting ready for row 17, which is another row of surface crochet. He steals the focus if we let him see, so he has to tuck his little face away. So row 17, we start by chaining 2, 1 and 2. Our first stitch is going to go into row 14, so there's our stitch. This is 16, 15, 14. And it looks like 2 stitches go into row 14. That's 1 and 2. So this is our third stitch along. The third stitch along is going into row 15. So 16, 15. And we're doing 4 into row 15. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then 6 into row 16, and row 16 is the easy ones at the top there, so we'll work those now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now we need to do 4 into row 15 again, so find our next stitch along. This is 16, this is 15. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then to finish our row, we have 2 more stitches into row 14. So we have our final 2 stitches here. Find our little square. So 16, 15, 14. There's the first one. And the second one. Oh, and the second one we have to change back to our purple. Can't forget. And remembering that the next row we will be starting in the first blue stitch we did. We ignore the chains. So it's just something to always keep in mind. Feel free to mark that first stitch every time as well, if that helps you keep track. So that's where we are for row 17. Okay, in our purple we're going to work 18 back post single crochet around. Like so. Don't forget to count and make sure you still have the right number of stitches. And then we're going to work rows 19, 20 and 21, changing back to our pale colour in the final stitch of row 21. And the colour change. There we go. So here we are at the end of row 21. We're ready to get started on our second last row of surface crochet. Row 22, we are going to start by chaining 2. And let's see, our first 2 stitches go into row 19. So this is our first stitch. That's row 21, 20, 19. And we're putting 2 into row 19. Then we're going to single crochet through the loops from row 17. So these blue loops are the loops from row 17. And I want you to just find the ones that don't fall directly underneath where we currently are, but the ones that fall kind of next to that stitch. So that's where we're going to put a single crochet. We're then going to work 4 stitches into row 14. Now, what's interesting about row 14 is those are the same stitches that we worked row 17 into. So these 4 stitches here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, those are the 4 stitches we're about to stitch into again. Two, 3, and 4. And then we're going to once again single crochet through the loops of row 17. So we've used 8 stitches so far, and you can calibrate yourself by going back to the start of the row here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so we're on to our 9th stitch now. And that 9th stitch is going to go into row 18. So that's 21, 20, 19, 18 is here. Oh, and I've got my yarn on the wrong side of my hook, so we'll just pop that out and pop it back in. There we go. Then we have the next one into 19. So 1 stitch over, 21, 20, 19. The next one into row 20. So this is the stitch, 21, 20. Then we have 7 stitches into row 21, which is really easy because that's just that very top row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And to finish this row, we have 3 stitches into row 20, and of course the color change at the end of that. So we have our 3 stitches left. Here is the next one, and that's 21. This is 20. 1, 2, and a color change in that final one. Now this is another great example of close enough is good enough. You'll see I've got a little bit of a gap. Basically I've missed a stitch because my stitches maybe got too clustered together. Probably here is where I'd suggest that happened. But it's fine still. I'm just going to carry on from here. And keeping in mind that we skip the chain stitches, they don't count as a stitch. My purple stitch will go into or around this first blue stitch here that we worked. And I can see that row 23 is 21 back post single crochet around, so we'll just stretch ourselves over and work around that post. And the leg will do its own scrunching as we need it to, and it's going to be tucked away underneath anyway. So yeah, just don't stress out about that too much. You okay in there? So there we are at the end of row 23. You can see there how dramatically slanted that row 22 ended up. And we're now going to work row 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28, changing back to our pale color at the end of row 28. And the color change. Oh, excuse me. Alrighty, you ready for the final row of surface crochet for this project? Just so you know that I'm not kidding. That's what my underside looks like, right? Yours is allowed to look a little bit like that as well. I've deliberately not aimed for perfection with this, just because the close enough is good enough message just needs to be echoing through the hills. Anywho, row 29 starts with 4 chains. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that should give you some idea about how deep we're going. And we can see that row 29 starts with 5 stitches into the row that we worked row 17 into. So row 17 is this row here. This is row 22. This is row 17. So we want to come all the way down here, following this stitch down to approximately this stitch here, following our stitch down. Because of these rows, we can only be approximate with it to about here. That's 1. And it's a long journey, a very long journey. And the next one around is 2. And we're going to keep following the stitches that row 17 was worked into. So 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, you see that? This is what we currently look like. Our next stitch is a single crochet through the loops from row 22. So just find the stitch that doesn't sit directly behind where we currently are, but is the next one over, which is this one here. We'll just single crochet into that. And it starts getting a little bit more normal from there. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches. So these are our next set of loops. This is our next stitch. And we're going to follow it down to row 24. So this is 28, 27, 26, 25, 24. It goes in here. 1 into row 24, then 1 into row 25, 2 into row 26, one into row 27, and then 14 into row 28, which is our very top row. Now, I kind of just built my way up the side then without stopping each time to calibrate with our stitches, but I do feel that you guys have seen me do that enough times now that you should have the idea. You find the stitch that you're up to along the top, you follow the column of stitches down and work out where your stitch goes based on which row it's supposed to go into. So yeah, we're going to work 14 stitches along row 28. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 'What number are we up to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So that's 14 there. And we're then going to work our way back down the slope. So when you're ready, we're going to do 1 into row 27. So this is 28, this is 27. Next stitch along, 2 into row 26. So this is 27, this is 26. 1 and 2. 1 into row 25, so down another one. 1 into row 24. 1 into row 23. A single crochet through the loops from row 22, and we're going to go with these ones over here. It's a little tricky, but we're going to do it anyway because that's where that stitch needs to be. And finishing off with one final stitch into the same stitch that row 17 was worked into, which is how we started this whole mishigas. Oh, and I should have used that to change back to my darker color, my purple, so we'll just frog that, and our purple is going on an epic journey all the way from down deep or all the way from here down the side, or down the front as it were. That doesn't matter because all of this beautiful stitch work is going to be inside our leg. And that is the final surface crochet row, I think, for the whole pattern. But you see there, this one here gets a little bit rough. That's why I say the right leg is harder than the left. The gist of it is you want the lowest part of your curve to basically be on top of where the previous two rows were overlapping. So as long as you get that close enough, it's fine. And crawl back up the edge, round the outside, and then crawl back down to your starting position. So we have one final row to go in our purple, and it is 33 back post single crochet. So that's just one around each of our blue stitches from the previous row. And finish off. You have survived the gauntlet. Trim off your yarn. And we're going to stuff a little bit into the leg. Once again though, we'll get the main chunky part of the leg as we go to sew it on. There we go. So right leg, left leg. We now have a leg to stand on. Now, we have a lot of our pieces here. So what I thought it might be fun to do is pin them in place so you guys can start getting a feel for what we're creating before we create the final piece, which is the panel that runs down the back. So let's pop these out because while it was funny, it's not practical. And we're going to grab our body pin, and it's kind of like a bowling pin, and I'm going to grab my tail. So the top of the tail is where you can see where we've changed our rows, and I'm going to find the center back of my body piece here. So the nose is at the front, the folds we stitched in are at the front. This is the center back, and we're just going to pin our tail in that center back position. Keeping in mind it does still need some stuffing in there, but you do that as you sew. So that's where the tail will go. Now we'll also be sewing this so that it has some curve to it, so don't worry too much if it looks silly at the moment. Next we're going to grab those legs that we just worked so very, very hard on. Right leg first, and we're going to line it up with the tail on one side, and there shouldn't be much of a gap between these two pieces at all. In fact, you can see there that the purple and the purple are meeting. Again, we will be stuffing this a little bit as we go to attach it, but for now we're just going pin in place to get a feel for things. Most of my pins are tied up in Pokemon at the moment, so I'm having to be a little bit more careful than usual. So that's our first leg, and I'm going to put the second one on the other side, keeping in mind that I'll probably move these around a little bit until I'm really happy with them. But again, lining it up so that the leg is literally touching the tail. The back piece will overlap a little bit on top to cover up any of the blue. Now, I've done that very crooked, haven't I? Check to make sure that your legs aren't crooked. Oh, come on now. He's just misbehaving on purpose. So, seated position, leg touching the tail, foot flat on the ground. That's better. Okay, that's one. And same thing on the other side. Foot flat on the ground, leg touching the tail, pin, pin, pin. That is what we currently look like. The arms will almost definitely be moved around as we make the back piece because the back piece gives you something to line them up with, but for now you can just find the bottom of this particular neck wrinkle, and I've overstuffed this one a little bit. And just line it up and pin it in place directly underneath it on either side of the body. That's one, and same thing on the other side. Haven't overstuffed this one, he's fine. You can pin the hands down to the stomach if you'd like, but there we are. And finally the head. So I'm going to take the magic ring of this nose piece and overlap it with the magic ring of our head piece. Just plonk a little pin in there. Then it's just a matter of, I'll lie him down, laying this down and around, like so, and laying this down and around, like so. You will have a bit of extra space at the back there, that's fine and to plan. And then you can also just like flatten down the part between the two eyebrow ridges too. Chuck a pin or two in there, which will help anchor it. So that is what we currently have. Now, I suggest putting the eyes in between rows 13 and 14 of this face mask piece, and we can plonk them in now and get a feel for it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So between the rows 13 and 14, and then like up under this brow ridge. First eye. Same thing on the other side. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And that is roughly where our second eye will go. So that's, as you see, he comes together once you pin him together. Just the bit that we're missing is this panel down the back, which is a replacement piece for the many pieces I made this guy up out of. But we have sort of just one piece that we're going to make to get the job done here. And then I'll spend the next 11 years of my life sewing these guys together because my goodness, do they look adorable side by side. So let's make ourselves a back panel. So this panel, unlike all of the other pieces, is actually just worked as a flat piece. It's relatively straightforward comparative to pretty much everything else I've made you do so far. So I've got my purple here, and I will be starting in that, so I also recommend you start in your dark color. And we're actually going to build the entire piece in one color and then come along with our pale color and stitch on some detail rows just over the top. Like it's straightforward, you'll get it, don't worry. If you've made it this far, this piece is well within your abilities. So we are going to start by chaining 20. And then we're going to turn and start in the second chain from our hook and work 19 single crochet back along that chain. Like so. We're then going to chain 1 and turn again. And this time we're going to work in the front loops only, which is just the loop of the stitch on the side facing you, and we're going to work 19 slip stitches back along the row. We used a similar technique to this, in fact we used this exact technique earlier when we were making the back of the face piece, but I think it's a little bit more straightforward as part of these back rolls. Then chain 1 and turn. So what you can see from that previous row is that we've got our slip stitches sitting in the back, but we've got these loops sitting in the front. They were the back loops last round because it was facing the other way, but we've turned, and so now it looks like we have front loops free. Now for every stitch in this row, we're going to work over the top of those slip stitches by inserting our hook below that front loop and pulling up our loop over the top and working our stitch completely over the top of those slip stitches. So that's our first one. And we're going to work 19 single crochet across, so you'll get a feel for this as we go. 2, so hook below the loop, stitch over the top of the slip stitch. Once again, this will give you a slightly taller than normal single crochet, and it will give you a fabric that's kind of a little bit stiffer than you might be used to when working up a flat piece. Both things are expected and in fact planned for. So I don't know why I'm explaining it. So there we go, that's what a whole row of that looks like. Chain 1 and turn. And we're going to repeat that pair of rows again. So row 5 is 19 slip stitches in the front loops only with a chain 1 and turn at the end. Chain 1 and turn. And row 6 is 19 single crochet over the top of those slip stitches. Again, chaining 1 and turning at the end of the row. chain 1 and turn. So here we are at the end of row 6. We've got a little bit of a rectangle happening. In row 7 we are going to slip stitch, so working through both loops this time, slip stitch. Then we're going to work 17 front post single crochet across. So that's working our hook from the front of the stitch, around the post, back to the front of the stitch. You should be honestly so used to front post and back post stitching by the end of this pattern that you're bored with it. That's the true measure of knowing that you've learned a new skill. It's like when you're bored of doing it, that's the metric. Okay, so that's 17 there, which should leave us 1 stitch left in our row, and we're going to slip stitch through both loops. Chain 1 and turn. So you'll see what that's given us is this little ridge on the front of our piece, and I can tell it's the front because my starting tail is on the left hand side for me. So row 8 is just 19 single crochet across. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and this tricksy little 19 tried to get away, but we caught it. We didn't let that happen. 19. Chain 1 and turn. Just recalibrating myself. You guys may not be aware of this, but we just had a massive frog invasion. Here we are at the end of row 8. From here we're just going to continue working up this piece, sometimes alternating between rows of slip stitch and then single crochet over the top, and sometimes using post stitching to create the ridges that form the wrinkles. And finish off. And I apologize if that all seemed very abrupt, but it took 3 attempts to get this recording correctly because I kept missing rows and all kinds of other hijinks, and I just didn't have it in me to talk y'all through it a 3rd time. So I feel like in terms of what we've been doing today, this isn't that hard of a piece, but I apologize if that left anyone behind. You will notice that we have this interesting little frilly bit at the bottom, and that is going to fit over the top of the tail. Come here for a second, buddy. I want to do stuff to you. So see, that will fold over the tail, and this we'll scrunch this down and around the various bits there. But we're not quite done with this piece yet. What we're going to do is grab our other color, and we're going to actually do some slip stitch surface crochet in the loosest fashion possible, just after each of these sets of loops. So this is pretty easy. It's honestly pretty fun. Just try not to overthink it too much. I'm going to find the row of loops. I'm going to reattach using a little slip stitch under the first one. Then I'm just going to slip stitch across. Just like so. This saved us from doing a bunch of color changes and other whatnot during the making of this piece, and instead you can just kind of relax, turn your brain off, no counting required. We're just going to slip stitch along to add a little bit of an accent to each one of those wrinkles. Alrighty, so that's all the way up to the edge. It's up to you if you want to do, alright, go around that very last little edge as well, I have here, and finish off. And we're going to do the same thing here, here, and here. So, alright, so we have all of our pieces, and we're just going to start assembling really. So I'm going to just take off the ones that we're not super settled on yet. There's my emotional support tortoise. Honestly, that can probably stay there. But what we are going to do is take the arms off. Sorry, little guy, you're all right. So what we are going to do is start by sewing around the edge of the tail, and we're going to leave a little gap so that we can chuck some stuffing in. I don't have a lot of purple left, but we're going to make it work. I can always swap to my blue. It's not a big deal. So now the tail is fully on there, we need to give it a little bit of a curl, a little bit more personality. So what we're going to do is crink it upwards at each of these blue joints. So it should want to hinge because of the way we stuffed it, but force it if it does not. It was designed to do this. It's up to you if you want to take it all the way to the tip. I'm thinking I'm going to go one more up and leave this top one just kind of a little bit more knobbly. So I've pinned those in place, and now I'm just going to take my yarn where it's still attached and just thread up inside the tail and just like stitch each one of these down into position. And one stitch into each of them should do the trick, just at the center top, because you want to leave the rest of it kind of loose and rolly. Take out all the hazards. And trim off. Okay, so that's the tail done. Now we still have our legs pinned in place, but if you don't, this is just a reminder that they should touch the tail at the base, and the feet should be relatively flat on either side of the body there. It's in like flat on the ground. And I'm going to take the same yarn, I've still got a little bit left, and stitch around the outside of each of these legs, being careful to stop, leave a little gap and stuff any extra stuffing I need down into that thigh portion. So I'm going to do both of those now. Remove the hazards. We're going to do it again. I don't want to pretend that this fellow is perfectly symmetrical. I don't think I've been trying to at any point in this, but I just want to like state it for the official record that he's quite clearly not perfectly symmetrical, but he is perfectly wonderful, and I just want you to embrace the wonkiness a little bit. So yeah, alright, we have our legs, we have our tail all done. The next thing we're going to do is actually pin on the back rolls, which we haven't done anything with yet. So we're going to take our back piece. This is where we started, and this is the end of our back piece, where you should have like this little kind of curled bit sitting in the middle. So what I'm going to do is drape that over the base of the tail, and I'm going to pin it to the legs on either side. To give you some idea of the position, you see that? It curves up and around the leg, it's pinned to the body there, down and around the tail, which kind of gets in the way a little bit, but you can see it there, and then up and up the side of the other leg. So it's pinned to the body, here and here. Then it looks like he's wearing a little fabulous cape. Darling. So the rest of this is going to be like scrunched down on either side up the body, but we want our arms to kind of tuck under it in these little pocket places. So that's where the bottom of it goes. Then we're just going to fold it and grab our arms and pin them roughly where they were before, just under this first neck wrinkle. Pile of pins in that armpit. And now when we straighten that out, so we have these top two rolls and these bottom two rolls, and then there's like a long curved edge on either side between the two. That long curved edge wraps around the shoulder. Just pinning these on now just to see if it all fits. That's one. We have our other one on this side. Yeah, and that's going to line up really, really good. So for now, I'm going to remove any pins in the top half of this back roll piece. We're just going to fold it carefully back down, and we're going to take a minute and just sew these arms into place. And all I'm going to do is sew around the shoulder on each side. Okay, so both arms are attached now. So now we have to fold this the rest of the way out. I'm just going to trim that off. That's going to be in the way. We're going to fold this back up like this. We're going to scrunch it around the head like this. We're going to pin the ever-loving fudge out of it, and at the same time you can use it to pull the head down if you wanted to. You can leave him looking up and optimistic if you're feeling optimistic, but you can use this piece to kind of anchor the head in a slightly more downward position. Now is your chance. So I'm just pinning it a few times across the back of the head, then I'm going to come down to like here on either side of the arms. I'm going to take the widest bit, I'm going to stretch that sucker across. Take this other point and stretch it on down. It wraps around the top of that shoulder. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. It's all like loosey-goosey and flappy. Take this corner and stretch it down. Take this corner and stretch it around. And now, now we need to take either purple or blue. Either color doesn't really matter. Like there's a lot of like colors used everywhere here, and we need to go all the way from like here over, down, round, all the way down, over the top of the tail, basically just sew on around the whole perimeter of this piece. Yeah, and I've decided I'm going to do some blue stitching. Making sure I get all the pins. And I'm just going to take a moment and tuck all of my ends in. You'll thank yourself for it later if you do it now. So we have just one final piece left to attach, and that is of course, excuse you, that is of course the face. So I've left a couple of traps in here for myself. And just a gentle reminder that my eyes have been positioned into row 13, but I haven't snapped the backs on yet, so I'm going to do that now. Let's try and get some good clicky sounds for you. Nothing. Nothing. Just nothing. No pop, no snap, no crackle, nothing. Tiny pop. Tiniest pop. Flatten it back out in the right way. Gonna line up those snoots. Keep in mind that this time the position is permanent. And we're gonna pin the tip of the nose and just smooth both sides down and around. Pinch the eyebrows back into place. See, we've still got a little bit of a room at the front back here. I think I'm going to move mine down a little. Okay, so I've brought mine down a little bit further at the front, just to get a bit of facial expression. I really want you to take your time with this step because the facial expression really does make or break this little guy. Still curving that around the back jaw, but you should be able to see most of the top blue stripe when the face is in position. I'm going to keep spinning him until I'm happy. Once again, just like pinch these eyebrows back into position, and we are going to stitch down the middle of the head as well. So chuck some pins in now so you don't forget. Just to help them hold their, you want them to like hold their position as well. And with that done, we are going to sew down the edge from this point in the jaw all the way down and around the back up to this point in the jaw. And then we're going to sew one stitch in from the edge so that we preserve this lip. Looks like that underneath, by the way. So one stitch in for the rest of the distance, and then we're just going to put a couple of stitches straight down the middle of the head. So that's the attack plan, and that is why I saved a little bit of my purple. Okay. I'm going to take a little bit of white and we're just going to add a few little details to the eyes just to cute him up a little bit. And we've got to do the other side too. You know what, the hands can stay. I kind of like them. So, there's your finished dinosaur. Let me know in the comments what you've named yours. But other than that, I'll see you next week. Okay, bye. So, cool. And he likes it too, don't you? Yep. Don't look at me like that, you little gremlin. Pull yourself together there, sir. How's that for a squeaky hook? It's not crying out in pain, it's crying out in victory. Anybody else getting froggy vibes from him? Are you trying to help? Thank you. Oh, I wasn't recording. Was none of that recording, or did I record some of it? Ah. Oh, we're struggling to focus. Me and the camera. Okay. I'm all done with you for now, sir. Where's my tortoise? I need emotional support. Thank you. Aww. Practicing self-care. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. These are important tests to be running. Oh, my dude, you're looking a little desperate there. You're okay. Hold, please. Mr. Bones just needs to recharge his batteries.
You're streaming?
The look of betrayal on his face when he thought I was streaming without him. There's my peanut gallery. Here we are working on the right leg, as you know, because you didn't just take a break. I took a little break. That's fine. Again, buddy, please don't look. All done, bud. You can come out now. You're a good lad. Aw, he's happy to see us. And if you could try to get that look of desperation off your face, honey. We're nearly done. If he's happy and he knows it, claps his hands. Boop, 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 boop. I suppose I gotta sew you together still, don't I? I promise I'll sew you together, mate. Okay, I promise.